Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Committee on Government Operations. Last hearing, well, one of the last, now on House concurrent resolutions. First, we will do our usual bookkeeping, which is we're in conference room 225. We're being streamed live on YouTube. Unlikely event that we have to abruptly end this hearing due to technical difficulties. We will reconvene to discuss any outstanding business at 3:01 p.m. Monday, April 15th. 2024 in conference room 225, and a public notice will be posted on the legislature's website. We have normally a 2-minute limit on testimony, but hopefully that will not be necessary. First up, HCR 77 requesting that the governor establish a leadership accelerator program for exceptional managers in state government. We have no testimony from it. Anybody want to jump in? No? All right, well, there goes that. Next up, we're going to go to HCR 143, urging Department of Human Services, Department of Health, and Judiciary to prioritize ensuring that contracts for government services are adequately resourced to cover the costs of providing those services. First up, we have the State Department of Health. In support, DHS. Comments, Catholic Charities.
Chair, I'm Betty Larson with Catholic Charities Hawai'i, and we are strongly supporting this. We're a member of the True Cost Coalition, and over 90% of our members are not being paid the full cost. Catholic Charities is eating about 25% on each contract, which is really hard after a while. No for-profit who gets a contract from the state is going to say, okay, I'll just use my own money to pay 25%. And the result of that is over time, programs are really now at risk of closing or at least reducing staff. We have to delay hiring. We can't find people at the salary levels that we can offer. So it's really a crisis, because if the state wants to work on homelessness, mental health issues, you're depending on our community. If the state has to take over these services, the cost would soar. And you have a system in place that's effective, that has dedicated workers, but they're leaving because of their own family needs. They don't want to face homelessness themselves when they can't afford the rent and the high cost of food and all that. So we just ask that you really look at this seriously. The crisis is now, it's been going on for some time, but it's 10 years, 10 years for homeless programs.
I'm sorry, testifier. Let's do this. Let me go through everybody else and then we can jump back. Let's just be fair to them. Okay.
So thank you very much for hearing this.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Melissa Pavlicek, Hawai'i True Cost Coalition.
Good afternoon, Chair. I'm sorry, Melissa couldn't be here today. My name is Keo. I'm here on her behalf, and I'm also here on behalf of the True Cost Coalition. The True Cost Coalition is in support of HCR 143, urging the Department of Human Services, Department of Health, and Judiciary to prioritize ensuring that contracts for government services are adequately resourced to cover the costs of providing those services. The True Cost Coalition is comprised of over 50 community-based nonprofit organizations serving more than 500,000 people across the state. And the True Cost Coalition has come together to ensure that government funding adequately and sustainably covers the true cost of providing government services by Hawaii community-based nonprofit organizations. The True Cost Coalition supports having DHS, DOH, and the judiciary prioritize ensuring contracts are adequately resourced in conjunction with funding increases to these contracts, which provide services to the most vulnerable people in our community. And many of these contracts have not seen increases in over a decade, while program expenses, including wages, utilities, and administrative costs, have all increased. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of HCR 143.
Thank you for being here. Next up, we have Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction Center.
Aloha, Chair McKelvey. Nice to see you in person. Great to be here today. Nico Slebrins with Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction Center. I just wanted to give you a sort of a brief outline of what HRC does across the state and some of the challenges we faced since the pandemic, and especially since recovery from the pandemic. We provide medical case management services for people living with HIV on Oahu. We provide syringe access services to curb HIV amongst injection drug users and their intimate partners in every major county, including Maui County. And we also provide homelessness services in regions 1 and 6 on Oahu. And so we're impacted with both the Department of Health and the Department of Human Services here. I just wanted to say that we're very grateful for the work that we do and the support that we've received from the departments over the years. But for example, our syringe access contract has remained steady at $668,000 for over 3 decades. Typically, DOH comes in with additional monies, but we're not always sure how much that is. Since the recovery from the pandemic, we've lost a lot of our frontline workers, people with lived experience, people who've been onboarded and trained and who've developed rapport with clients to the social services sector. We spend a lot of money training people. We have to onboard and offboard people. So that's just really some of the costs that we dealt with. And even under ordinary times, salaries are just not sufficient to live, a modest lifestyle here on Oahu, especially. So we're grateful for the opportunity to testify today, and we're grateful to your leadership and to the leadership of our departments. Mahalo.
Okay, thank you for being here, sir. Appreciate you coming in and giving us your perspective. Ryan Kusumoto from Parents and Children Together, PACT. Hello.
Aloha, Chair. My name is Trisha Kajimura, here for PACT. Thank you. I sense that I might be preaching to the choir, but we support this measure. We're a statewide social services agency, including services provided on Maui County. And I just wanted to share a story from our community teen program, if I may. It's one of those programs that really provides essential services to the community, but is really held together with duct tape, government funding, and grant funding. And last week, we're based in Kuhio Park Terrace, and that's where we're born. Since 1990 for this particular program. And we're also in Pu'uwaimomi, which is in Halawa, so 2 public housing programs. Last week, they held a family dinner event. I got to go and serve food to the children and families that were participating. And there was a girl who looked to be about somewhere between 8 and 10 years old. We served, full plate from the foil plant pans like we do, chicken, rice, noodles. As the line ended, she came back having eaten maybe a third of her plate, and she asked for more. And so I was like, wow, this is a lot of food for this little girl, right? Like okay. So I refilled her plate. And then instead of taking it back, she said, Auntie, can I have some foil? And it just about broke my heart because I knew that meant she's taking that plate back home to feed other people. And at that age, that's how aware she is of what her family needs. And so that's really what we're fighting for to sustain is these essential services to communities that we can't do without better funding and just more assistance in holding this together. So thank you for your time and the opportunity.
Thank you for being here and testifying and for sharing that story. We have Epic Ohana.
Aloha, I'm Laurie Tochiki, and I'm Executive Director of Epic Ohana. And I won't add a lot to our testimony except to, first of all, explain what Epic. So Epic is a nonprofit that's been working with families and children in the child welfare system for 27 years. Most of our work is with the child welfare system, with the families and the youth, and also with youth with mental health challenges through the Department of Health, and also with mothers who are suffering from prenatal substance use disorder. So it's a very specialized group. And it is definitely about not covering true costs. We have contracts that have operated in the red. We have contracts that have not increased over a decade. But it's also about how we're paid, being paid on time, some of the processes that go into the procurement process. And I know that the resolution doesn't reach all of that, but if we're not paid timely, even though it doesn't cover true costs, that also makes the cost even more. So thank you so much for your consideration. We are very proud to serve the families and the children. And we are also really happy and proud of our relationships and with the partnership of the Department of Health and Department of Human Services. And we want to work together better. Thank you.
Thank you. The Hawaii State Coalition Against Domestic Violence.
Aloha, Chair. I'm Angie Mercado, the Executive Director of the Hawaii State Coalition Against Domestic Violence. We are a membership organization consisting of 28 agencies and programs throughout the state that serve survivors of domestic violence and their families. And we are a proud member of the True Cost Coalition. Part of what we do for our member programs is to do this type of systems advocacy, because we hear firsthand from our member programs who are not able to adequately serve the needs of the community because they don't receive timely payment, payment that actually reflects the cost of keeping and maintaining staff with the expertise that they have. And I want to take this opportunity, if I may, to also just elevate to the legislature that we recognize that there's so many burdens on our state budget. And the big part of it has to do with the wildfires that occurred in Maui. And I want to articulate the intersection between gender-based violence and natural disasters. And the Maui wildfire was just an indication of when is the next one gonna happen. And if we're not adequately able to meet the needs of our survivors in our community now, every time a natural disaster happens, it exacerbates. We're not saying that natural disasters cause domestic violence, but they exacerbate the situations that are already occurring. Our survivors become at the bottom of the list for resources against other survivors who are just fighting for food, water, and shelter. But yet we have already seen Women Helping Women has increased over 100% increase in their call volume in November. And in that same article reported, FEMA recognized the impact of the vicarious trauma. That vicarious trauma is not gonna end when the FEMA funding ends. Our communities are gonna have to deal with the substance use, the mental health issues, the increase in violence. We were seeing more survivors reporting their abusive partners threatening and having access to firearms and ammunition and knives. And we've already seen what's been happening throughout the state already. We have to have this important resolution to make sure that our state departments are able to prioritize these contracts. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Okay, thank you for being here. Next up, we have Institute for Human Services.
Aloha, Chair. Apologies for the late testimony. I'm Angie Knight with IHS. As a lot of our other service partners here today have testified, the contracts haven't been increased in nearly 10 years, and some even longer than that. The minimum wage is just the one example that we always turn back to because it's the most visceral in it, and it goes from $7.75 back in 2015 to $14 an hour now. And a lot of what that impact is both operation costs, but also personnel. And so right now with homelessness, we've seen like it ebbs and it flows of increase and decrease, but it could be a lot worse if there wasn't as many people out there doing the work that we're doing. But right now with the wage compression, we're seeing that it's harder and harder to get staff to be there and to do it. And so while these contracts haven't been increased, we've had to rely more on our donors and the other different ways that we can creatively get funding for these programs. But that also puts more of a burden on our existing staff as well. And as we've seen with inflation, with Maui fires and all of that, that gap that we're so relying on right now is getting smaller and smaller and harder to access. So thank you for the consideration, because if we're to continue doing the good work that we're doing, we need something a lot more sustainable and stable. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here. Next up, we have, I believe they're via Zoom, HCAN. Are they online? Sorry.
They're not present on Zoom, Chair.
Okay, we also have Hawaii Food Bank written in support. Let's see, Mediation Center of the Pacific in support. YMCA Honolulu in support. Aloha United Way in support. Halekipa Inc. in support. Aloha Care in support. Lanakila Pacific in support. Easter Seals Hawaii. A testimony from one of their analysts in support. The Spirit Horse Ranch Inc. Maui, written in support. Adult Friends for Youth, written in support. John Fink, individual, he has written in support. And then I believe we have Karen Worthington, individual, written in support. So that's all I have on the list of people who testified. Anybody in the audience wishing to testify?
Good afternoon. I sent in my testimony, but sounds like it's not there. My name is Laura Thielen, and I'm the Executive Director of Partners in Care. And we kind of oversee all the homeless programs on Oahu. We also host the database with all the information of those experiencing homelessness. So we have all the stats and all the numbers, but you know, I don't want to repeat too much of what anybody else has said because we're all on the same team here. But one of the things that I feel is really important to get across is the passionate work that people do. You are not called to do homeless services unless you have a passion for people who are extremely vulnerable. And that's what we have. And today, we had a meeting of outreach workers. We had over 25 outreach workers come and network and support each other and really make a difference in so many people's lives. And those people are the worst paid in our sector. And in my opinion, being an outreach worker 20 years ago, I know they're also the worst paid. So we need to correct those kinds of things and recognize that it doesn't just take a body to fill those positions. It takes a passionate person to be willing to not get paid as much as they could in the private sector and also do this really intensive work. They also get the brunt of anger from the community members. And so we're struggling. We don't have enough outreach workers. As was said previously, we can't pay them what they are worth. And so we're just going to continually lose them. This is a crisis. There's not one sector in Hawaii or community member or anything that thinks homelessness is not a problem. Yet we're treating it like we just need to react to it and as status quo. And that's what we see with the funding, that it has been status quo for decades. And we have to realize that we can solve homelessness. There's no doubt in my mind. At a later meeting today, we had a discussion on who was getting housed this week. And we had at least 5 individuals or families going into housing this week. We're doing the work. We're passionate. We deserve to have what funding is available to put towards not just salaries, but also to everything else. I mean, things like transporting individuals, things like that. So we really support this measure. We're really hoping that this will go into the base budget next year and we can really see some funding increases because the problem of homelessness and houselessness is not going to stop anytime soon unless we actually confront it as a crisis. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anybody else who wishes to testify that may not have? Anybody else on Zoom? If not, I guess questions, I'm the only one here. But I guess, like you said, there's a team here, so I'm just going to pick a cap for representative from the team, and I guess it'll be you, Betty, because it's a common thread. Well, first of all, I want to note that the departments aren't here. I mean, that kind of irks me greatly because a lot of this revolves around them, obviously, because these purchase of service contracts. Walk me through a typical purchase service. I mean, you say you've had these contracts for 10, 20, are they entered into for that long time period? Or are they yearly or are they?
Sometimes it's 2 years, but usually it's an annual. We go in annually.
So when they
And so
come
these
back
core
again with the
services are not
same,
even in the base budget
Yeah.
yet.
so they come back in to do the 2 years, the contract costs is, increase. You come back in 2 years. At that point, could you say we can't do it for this amount? We're going to need more, and we can't do a contract. Or
They say
what?
this is the amount of money that's available. Do it for this or not.
But if
So our opinion, I mean, our
so if you
option
guys
is don't
can't
do it
do it, then the state would, I guess, have to do it.
if it's going to get done.
Or they would hire. But I mean, to the point though, if this contract can't be executed at that level, is there another provider that would actually be able to step in, or there be no?
Well, what providers do is they decrease their scope of services, so they don't treat or work with as many people, or they close programs. And when we started asking all the providers what they would.
We'll have to have you
to
come up to the
Yes.
mic. People are gonna get mad. Say, "Well, you come here though."
Yeah, I mean, it's, we have to be able to cut programs. So there are some programs and smaller programs that are doing wonderful work, but $60,000 might be enough cut away from their budget that they actually have to close down.
So they say 60,000, the provider says, I can do it, but now I have to reduce scope, and they say, okay, and so that's where we're having the reduction.
Well, no, the scope of work on the majority, and anybody can correct me, the scope of work usually does not change from year to year. So we are expected to provide services to the same number of people with the same money, but not include the inflation and extra costs on that. So a lot of our programs have to go out and do fundraising, or they have to go to a philanthropic group to bring in more money. And that's a lot of work for something that the government should be doing.
Well, yeah, it's a core government service
Yep.
and function. The idea is you can do it quicker, less expensive,
Yep.
with more efficacy than government can. But, I guess because we have an audience watching and things like that, this is, unfortunately, this is an old, that brings me to my next question. I mean, we talked about this, it's been for years, since I was in the House. I mean, why is it still the same? I mean, there's been no, the agencies have not, I mean, what, are they saying it's the legislature, we're not providing enough money, or what is the response from them? And they're not being here today. It's kind of disappointing because obviously a lot of the questions are with them.
We usually will come in every year for what we call the core services. These are the new services like outreach, housing first, other things like that. And it's still not in the base budget. I mean, it's been, how about 10, 12 years since
At
we've had these
least.
homeless, at least. And yet it's still annually, usually. Sometimes, and recently we've gotten funded for 2 years in the biennium, but usually it's annual. So you're fighting for just all the other money, and here's the money. This year, we appreciate that the Department of Human Services, the budget has a 5% increase, 1.32 million. But the advocates were asking for 20%. Tell you the truth, 5%. For a lot of agencies just isn't going to do it. I mean, it's a 20% gap or 25% gap. So, I mean, we appreciate that, but they have the constraints of, they went in for more actually, but budget and finance, I mean, whatever the governor's office, they say, okay, your department, you can only ask for this much. You might ask for this, but here's what it's going to go in the budget. And, departments we can fight for more. Departments have a hard time saying, no, you need to fight for more.
We're looking
doing
at least 20% would actually get us to a point where we should be somewhat comfortable. 20% increase. They're only going in for 5%, and that's they do support wanting to increase it, but
Should you guys I guess, to advocate for this and to give the public a reality, is like, okay, this 20%, if done by state government, would equal 50% more than what's being called for in the budget. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? If people can see the alternative,
yes.
then all of a sudden, and my good friend from Hilo, we just confirmed downstairs, said, we're spending money to save money. You
Yes.
see what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely. And so you're cutting out some of these smaller groups that can fill in those gaps, but some of the larger agencies, it's expensive to house individuals, but the cost to the state definitely is a decrease in the ER services immediately. If we can, and the idea that anybody, at least for homelessness, I know there's other types of programs, but at least for homelessness, you can save so much money by permanently housing an individual. So that is our goal. We're trying to go back up the pipeline and prevent homelessness. That's where we should be working. But we can't do that right now because, we had a point in time count in January. It's going up a tiny bit, hopefully not too much. We're going to have our report out in 2 weeks, and that will really show to you and the community, what a snapshot in time homelessness is. So we'll look at probably just over 4,000 individuals that we were able to count and survey within one day. But
On Oahu.
on Oahu. But over the course of the year, there's more than 12,000 people that get some type of homeless service through these agencies. So if we keep on cutting these or not increasing those, that number will increase. We may not see the exact number on a daily basis, but during the year, we're going to see that. And we understand that the Maui fires have really changed the dynamics of this session. But this has to be sought out.
Well,
in the same vein.
yeah, but to one of my colleagues' points, we also still have to ensure we're taking care of
Yes.
everybody. And the Maui fires residual effects which we warned about 6 months ago, are spilling forth. So it's affecting as far as just online.
Yeah.
I mean,
And you have to realize there's new groups. Elderly used to be about 7%. Last year, 22% of the homeless were elderly. I mean, we have
And
people
that's
in
going to
walkers on
increase.
oxygen becoming homeless.
mhm, mhm.
And a lot of it is due to economics.
Yeah, it's
But where do you go and who helps them? How do they know where to go if there's
Exactly.
no worker there who can kind of take them by the hand? You know, it's not, you know, they're not 22 years old and can do applications. You know, they're frail, or even if they're not frail, who's going to help them if there's not the programs there? It's not the outreach particularly that can tell them, hey, there's help. We had a lady come to our Catholic Charities as a housing assistance program for the elderly. Years ago, she was riding the bus for a whole year. She was homeless. She didn't know she could apply for SSI. She could apply for food stamps. She didn't know until someone referred her to Catholic Charities and said, we can help you with all this. And, you know, then I think within 6 months, then when she had income and things, we could get, it's easier back then.
Mhm.
Housing crisis wasn't as bad, but still, a lot of people just don't know what is available to them, and especially elders who are not used to asking for help, been independent all their life.
It's too bad this couldn't be addressed more forcefully in a bill, perhaps in the future.
Mhm.
Because this is a huge detrimental effect, and to the point that somebody in the past once said, "You made it all today. If not for you guys being the providers, and it's going to fall upon the state, and we have vacancies galore anyway." Right.
Mhm.
So, but thank you for being here. I appreciate you having this lengthy discussion on this issue, which should be addressed. We're going to get quorum for this measure, so we're going to recess for decision making, and then we'll bounce back when we get enough members for the committees to make a recommendation. Okay, recess. All right, everybody, welcome back to the decision making. See you later. Decision making on the measures in front of us. Although my good friend from Health and Human Services, oddly enough, was here as a member of the committee, we were still short on quorum today. So with that, we are going to go ahead and we're going to decision make on the 2 items on the agenda on Monday at 3:03 p.m. in this conference room. And to decision make on both. So we apologize, everybody, but hopefully you'll understand if we're getting into this period with the craziness and small committees and such, but we'll definitely be making a recommendation then. So thank you all for being here, testifying for the great discussion. This concludes the hearing.